Midlife is a time of pretty significant transitions. So, just think about this. Like, I've been thinking for years about how by the time any of us reach middle age, we're a little banged up, a little beat up, we've got some scars, we've been through some shit, we've navigated hard things. And one of the things that happens is that we arrive in midlife, and it's such a time of transition. Menopause, empty nest, divorce, retirement, maybe going back to school or creating a new career, a second career of sorts, friendship changes, family changes, loss of loved ones, all sorts of hopefully, emotional, like mental, inner healing and growth as well, and physical changes. Like it just goes on and on. And that's not even talking about world events, like things that are happening outside of us. So, midlife is a time of significant transition, sometimes upheaval. So many women in this season don't know who they are anymore. They feel like maybe they never knew their real selves because they were so busy just being a good girl, doing the right thing, taking care of everybody else, or they feel like they lost themselves along the way. So, we're going to talk today about how to get to know yourself again in midlife. I want to talk about some of the symptoms of not knowing yourself and some of the costs of avoiding or delaying the work of getting to know yourself. Before I even go there, though, I want to say this. There is nothing inherently bad or wrong in feeling like you don't know who you are. It's actually just part of the growth process. It's a perfectly natural place to be, uncomfortable, but natural. It's not bad or wrong. This is so important because midlife women are chronically hard on themselves already, and we can use anything, any circumstance as more proof that we are doing something wrong, more reason to berate ourselves and think that we should know how to do something differently. We should already have this figured out. This is just one of those things that if you have the gift of reaching this stage of your life, and I really do believe it is a gift. My mom died at 53. I'm turning 55. I'm aware this is a gift. I have this opportunity to continue expanding and becoming, healing and stripping away and do all of this like development work that, and just experiencing life, the fullness of life that she didn't get. I don't want to take it for granted. So, this is part and parcel of the gift of growing older, of growing into midlife. It's an invitation, it's not a condemnation. So, maybe just pause there and think about this for a moment. It's an invitation, it's not a judgment or condemnation. You haven't done anything bad or wrong. You've just arrived here in this season of life, and now this is part of your work so that you can move forward in greater freedom, wholeness, and joy. And that's a beautiful thing. So, on this episode, we're talking about how to get to know yourself, maybe again, maybe for the first time in midlife. Before I go further, I have a brand new workshop coming out. I'm feeling really excited about it. I'm offering you in this workshop a framework that I've been developing, and it just wasn't the right time yet, but it's a new way of getting to know ourselves. It's a guided process, very intentional, and I think it could be very impactful for all of you. I've done the work myself. Like I've not only have been living it and testing it and bringing it from theory to practical application for a long time, but even just sort of the process that I'm presenting in the workshop, I kind of have gone through it myself and to make sure that it feels strong and accurate. So I'm going to present, I've touched on it here before in the podcast, this old self, new self, true self process. Another way we can think about this is your past self, your present self, and your future self. Where have you come from? Who are you today? Current self-identity, and who are you becoming? And I'm going to say a little bit more about this later in the episode. But again, this is a free opportunity. I think it's fun. I get actually really excited about this information. One, because I think when we have these light bulb moments and when I can like take years of work and offer it to somebody in hopefully an easy to digest form that you can apply right away to experience positive growth or change in your life, that gets me excited. Okay, that lights me up. Um, so I lost my train of thought, but oh yeah, so the workshop, I think it's fun. Come join me live. I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to help you understand the key things that you need to be looking for to really get to know yourself on a new level. And it's not only so that you know who you are today, it's also to help you cast a vision for who you are becoming or your future, what you want for your life. So there are two dates and times. You can join me for that. Link to the sign up page is in the show notes. Come join me. Love to, I always enjoy those moments of connection with people as well. Okay, so something that I do naturally, I do it all the time, and I offer it to others as an exercise in my life visioning course, sometimes in my Brave and Beautiful community, is kind of a timeline mapping or mapping out the story of our lives. And we can do this in different ways, but the gist of it is that we have to, at times, this is really critical. This is so important that periodically we stop what we're doing, we look back, and we witness our journey. We witness our progress and we celebrate it. We are proud of ourselves. But part of this is also not only learning how to be proud of ourselves, because what that does is boost motivation. It forges a stronger relationship with ourselves, stronger self-trust. It fortifies us so that we can continue moving forward. But also, this is where we mine for gold. We are scanning back to really look for the beauty and the wisdom of what we have gone through. So we will see the struggles, we will see the highs and lows, but overarching, what we're looking for is the wisdom. What did I learn here? How did this change me? What were the conditions or the factors that supported my healing, for example, or those that disconnected me from myself? All of that is wisdom. And then we use that wisdom to support our current relationship with ourselves and how we're going to move forward. So, this story mapping or timeline is useful in many ways. But another thing that I really want you to hear today is that your past does not define you and you get to keep writing your story. So, I'm sure you've heard this before. This is not new. I didn't pull that out of thin air. Your past does not define you. You get to keep writing your story. This is personally meaningful as well. I've shared a story in past episodes that late 2018, I had a vision. And during that vision, when I have these experiences, I hear a voice and I know that it's not my inner voice, it's different. So I attribute it to the Holy Spirit. That's what I call it. But I hear a voice and it's clearly, it's always the way, it's always very clearly distinguishable from my inner voice or guidance. So in this experience, I had a vision that I saw, and then I heard words, and I'm not going to go into the details. But what I heard at that time is, this is no longer your story. You will write a new story. And I interpreted it to the best of my ability at that time. And I was very hopeful. And I thought that it meant that my son, who I'd been trying to keep alive, that he would get better and all would be well. And and that is not what it meant, because only a few months later he made his first attempt to die. And then I think 6 months later, after that, he succeeded in dying and leaving this world. Um, and so that was, painful, obviously, but I held on to that message that I had received. This is no longer your story. You will write a new story. And the visual component of what I saw is significant. I just don't want to go into it here today. But I held on to that. And over the past 6.5 years since Jairus died, I have I have also allowed that to kind of stay in on the periphery, like to it wasn't in front of me guiding me per se, but it was always there with me. And because I had forged a strong inner voice, and I've been practicing honing the voice of my intuition from probably earlier, but the first like very clear specific example where I knew that I knew, and then I again, I don't want to go into it, but I love this stuff. It's so incredible. Not everybody experiences this in the world, I know, but where I really was 25 when I had that first strong experience of, oh, Krista, don't override this. When you hear this, trust it, because things won't go well if you don't. So I had already built this relationship with my inner voice, and had a relationship with distinguishing between my inner wisdom and this other voice that would tell me things that were coming. And like I really mean it. Like, you may think this is weird, I don't know, but I'm just being honest. Like, I once upon a time, like I heard a voice, for example, say, this was like it was training me. Say, I was heading out on the highway and I heard a voice that say, take a rag. And as I do, I always argue with the voice. It makes me laugh. Like, I'm so stubborn. I'm like, why would I continue to argue with this voice? But I do. So in this experience, I argued with the voice and I said, that's stupid, basically. Like, why would I take a rag? I was just going, 2 hours to the nearest city, and I heard this. It was so persistent. And so I'm like, okay, fine. Grabbed a rag. We barely got, just barely on the outskirts of the town, and our windshield wipers froze. And it was a muddy spring day, and so there was mud all over the windshield, and we were blinded. But I had a rag. And anyway, I'll leave that there. But I love, anyway, different conversation for a different day. Okay, so I'd been forging this relationship. So when I heard that, you will write a new story, I've held on to that. And honestly, even the past several years since really stepped into my true self and into my second spring of life, I keep thinking, okay, now I'm writing the new story, right? And I'm working towards that. But one of the truths that is very clear for me, and I'm going to talk about this more on the next episode, because I think it's really important and hopeful and empowering, is that when very often when we hear something, it doesn't mean the fruit of it is going to happen today or this year. Now, the example I just gave you, it really was immediate. And I think that was for my training. And I see this with some of my clients when they're learning how to hear, recognize their inner voice or their intuition. there will be opportunities to practice where they'll hear something. If they choose to override it, the consequence will be fast and it'll be immediate and uncomfortable. Why? Not to harm you, it's to help you. It's to help you hear that and trust what you hear. Getting to know ourselves does necessitate this work of learning to hear our inner voice. We must, because if we don't, we will continue to be led by externals like comparison or fads or pressure or urgency or what out things outside of us that are not true self, not authentic self. We must learn. We can develop this. It's a skill. We all have access to it. Not everybody has sort of this natural way of being in the world or, receives visions or hears things like I do. You don't have to. But Eve, I want you to know this though, that even women who have come to work with me and they really felt like, I've never heard my inner voice. This seems impossible, but fine. I'm just going to try. And they develop the inner voice. Or often what happens is they already had a strong inner voice, but they didn't recognize it. They couldn't hear its voice. Other things were louder: judgment, shame, old stories, everything else was louder and they just couldn't hear it yet. Okay, so we get to keep writing our story. Our past doesn't define us. And so the story for myself of, this is no longer your story, you're going to write a new story, for me is it ties into this that I know that I get to keep writing my story. And part of what that means, a tiny little speck of what that means, is that pain, despair, horror, panic, unsafety, that those things are part of my story, but they're not the fullness of it. Unless I set up camp in my despair, I get to keep living forward. I don't get to just live, I get to thrive. I get to experience joy. I get to be fully alive. I get to keep thriving forward. So we need to be able to see the arc of our story, the fullness of it, so that we can step back and create some mental and emotional distance or spiritual distance even, and recognize that these significant turning points, these extremely hard experiences, or the highs and the lovely experiences, they are all pieces of a tapestry. They all weave together, fit together to form this beautiful whole. But no one experience dictates who you are. Not one of those experiences defines you as a person. It is not who you are. It is an experience that you had. Separating who you are from your circumstances or your experiences is important here. It is, again, essential. So, part of this work in the workshop, in my summer session of the Brave and Beautiful community, or in my work as a whole, is to help you own this, to see the arc of your story, to see your becoming, to see your journey to freedom, to mine for wisdom from everything that you have gone through, and to use that for your benefit, to support your freedom, your wholeness, and your joy. All right, so in order to get to know yourself again in midlife, part of the process is looking back, as I already said. You look back at what was. Part of the process is acknowledging who you are today or where you are today. So that can include the season you're in currently, what that means. It can also include, it's fairly effortful in the beginning. This is where personality typing is really helpful. all sorts of different quizzes that tell you bits and pieces about who you are. None of them tell you the fullness of who you are. And by the way, personality doesn't even tell you who you are at your core. It tells you how you've learned to be in the world, how you've learned to show up, how you've learned to be in relationships, etc. We have to go beyond that if you want to actually meet and befriend true self. But this is a really important phase where we gather information. We really learn about our strengths and our struggles, and we learn how to embrace it all shame and judgment free. We learn how to meet our shadow, the parts of us that we've wanted to outrun or suppress. We learn how to recognize and even claim and celebrate our areas of gifting more and more. We learn how to be proud of ourselves. We really become awake to all of our dysfunctional patterns. We learn what we don't want anymore, what we want to let go of. We become awake to family of origin patterns, roles that we have played, how we have participated in old systems that, and we get to then choose how we want to move forward. So, a lot of work here around becoming awake to or conscious of what already is present in our lives so that we can then begin to strip away, let go, declutter, release, and overseed or rewrite certain core stories or beliefs that will allow us to continue moving forward in greater freedom. So this present self relationship is significant. You cannot meet and befriend true self without this work. This work needs to take the time that it needs to take. It cannot be rushed, but there are key things that you can understand and practice that will facilitate the process. And then the next leg of the journey, when we're beginning to shift from this, what I'm calling present self or new self, over towards true self, or we're growing into true self, a lot of that work, it is not about more doing at all. It's actually about taking radical ownership for who we are being. So it's about being on our own side, valuing ourselves, trusting ourselves. Um, and anything that isn't supporting that, we release. And so we're just getting freer and lighter as we go. Um, okay, so I'll say more about that in the workshop. And then we use all of the information that we have gleaned, all of the wisdom about ourselves and different catalysts in our life that have thrust us into growth, conditions, or, what are the thoughts? What are the ways of being in relationship with ourselves? What are the practices or habits that allowed us to step into growth in the past? And we use all of that information to help us even plan forward. We're not operating blindly anymore like we were once upon a time. We now have a lot of like an evidence base of what we know works for us. Part of that, one of the things that has been so helpful and freeing for myself is understanding my own creative process, how my brain works, how my soul operates in this world, so that now I'm not trying to look to books or anything to tell me how to be me. I know how to be me. My job is trust it, lean into that, and do that more and more of the time. So that's this next phase of becoming, where now we can map out how to move forward. So we're looking past to mine for the wisdom, to celebrate our progress. We're doing a lot of work in this present self place to form this strong sense of self or identity in the world. And then we can begin to strip away or let go of anything that is not true self or insofar as we can conceive of it or experience it today, what we know of who we are at the core. We start letting go, quieting the conditioning and noise, making space for more of what brings us joy, more of what helps us feel more at home in the world, etc. And then we can start to very intentionally map out our next steps. What is required of me to grow into that next version of me? We have a roadmap. It's not guesswork, it's a roadmap. Okay, so all of these three stages, past, present, future self, they're all kind of supported and held together by these four essential skills that you need to know. And you learn these in the Brave and Beautiful community. And you will also learn more about them in this June workshop, the Get to Know Yourself workshop. But these four filters, these four practices, these four truths even they will undergird and support all of this work. So you need to become familiar with them and you need to figure out what they mean to you and build even a process of using them in your own life as these filters to look for what's happening in your own life, like understanding your current growth edge, for example. All right, so come to the workshop. I'm excited, as I already said, I want to delve into this. I really want to help you understand why this is so important to you, how you can begin, like what it means to begin walking through this process, and we can talk about it, and you can get support when you join me live. Okay, I actually had meant to do this earlier, but I'm going to end here instead. So I wanted to talk about some of the costs of avoiding or delaying this work. I already said at the very start that arriving at this place where you're like, I don't know myself anymore, or maybe I never did, and it can feel upsetting, unmooring, destabilizing, and you might be vulnerable to like judgment and stuff. So you do need to know you haven't done anything wrong. This is a natural part of your growth process. You have received the gift of living this long, arriving at this stage of your life, and now this is the work in front of you. There is no shame or judgment around this. This is just the work in front of you. But if you avoid the work or you delay the work, it's just some of the symptoms that you might experience: chronic self-doubt and anxiety, lots of comparison, feeling stuck, like stuck energy, feeling lost, very unsure about what you want, more tension in your relationships. That's often a key symptom. And in midlife, in order to grow into our true selves, we go through a lot of relationship changes. But in this phase, if you're in this place where you don't know how to move forward yet, you don't know who you are, then often it's showing up in your relationships as conflict, tension, dissatisfaction, unmet longing, etc. And one of the most frustrating things is that sometimes you can't even articulate what's wrong. You just know something's wrong. Lots of division within yourself, feeling divided within yourself, maybe misalignment. So like no, your life or the way that you're behaving outwardly is not your true self, and you say you don't always know like what you want or who you are, but you can feel when you're not in alignment. And general unhappiness and life dissatisfaction. And whether or not you like this thought, I'm going to offer you a thought that I have about this, is that I think that this discomfort is for your good. Why? Because it motivates you to do the work. So just like we bump up against our leaky boundaries. How do we learn we have a leaky boundary? We bump up against something that's uncomfortable. It doesn't work for us. And often the way that we find who we are is by encountering what we aren't. And so that's why part of this and a really important part of this process is letting go of everything that isn't you. So, if you are even listening to this episode today and you're curious about the workshop and you're excited about it, but even today, when you get a nudge or you experience discomfort or frustration or something like that, and you recognize, I don't like this, then follow that. Or you're wearing clothing, like literally, even just you're wearing clothing and you're uncomfortable and you don't feel like you in your body, you've received information, not that. So, all of this sort of not that information is important. It is very valuable. So, if that's what you're encountering over and over again, you're feeling resistance, you're feeling frustration, you're feeling things that you used to do and you don't want to do it anymore, trust that. Because all of that, if you'll listen to it and you'll honor what you're hearing, it will lead you closer and closer to your true self, to who you really are and what you really do desire. But you do need to let do all of that stripping away, letting go, etc. as well. Okay, I'm going to end repeating myself again. Your past does not define you. You get to keep writing your story. You do not have to move forward, though, in the old patterns, the old beliefs, the old ways of being in relationship with yourself that brought you to this point in life. Please don't do that. You have an opportunity here to walk forward in so much more freedom and joy. Come join me on the workshop. I would love to connect with you there.